place in Division 2, Huddersfield
Town. Thank you.
And Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the flame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. The Terriers rocked the Robins, which melted the icy exterior of Nigel Pearson, who was effusive in his praise for Carlos Corberán and his boys as Town ran out 2-0 winners. It's Luton Town for us, and we'll be reading out some of your best and worst playoff memories later in the episode. I'm joined today by a couple of lads excited for the showdown. There's playoff veteran Richard Kosmala. There's the baritone of the Cowshed Loyal, warm in his larynx for next week in Dan Pozzaporrit. And a former player in Phil Senior who was part of the success at Cardiff in 2004 and will ignore 2006. As always, this episode is sponsored by the wonderful Magic Rock Brewing. If you use our code AHTTC10 at checkout, you'll get 10% off, and all orders over £45 as well are free of delivery. As always, we're in front of a live YouTube studio audience, so hello to everybody who is watching online, and thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure you'll all be jumping up and down about the prospect of the playoffs as well. So let us know, firstly, about the Bristol City game, and as always, we'll read out the best from the rest, if you like, in the comments section on YouTube. So without further ado, guys, you okay?
Very
We're
good,
not
thank
okay,
you.
then we might as well never ever broadcast.
I mean, personally, on a level, cause.
Mate, we've won 23 games, we've got 82 points, we've come third. And I'll tell you what, after that Fulham home game, first home game of the season, I told you, didn't I? Get it back, Matt. It's recorded somewhere. I told you this was going to happen.
You said we'd go down. Third bottom, I think you said.
I said fifth, mate, and you heard it, and that's so incredible player. What a team.
Yeah, so Huddersfield Town 2, Bristol City 0, so a really steady away, decent game. Carlos, there's a couple of points really from this game, and that's I think we just got some feedback coming through there. So guys, if you could just mute your mics if you're not speaking. So Carlos, I thought what was really interesting about this game was Carlos balanced the need for resting players and playing ones that needed minutes really well. Jamal Blackman in goal in case he needed to be called on. Turton and Pippa both got minutes in after being in and out recently. Hoggy played 45 minutes, didn't overplay him. Naby played just in case he's needed. Toffolo as well on a good streak at the minute, kept that streak going. He played 53 minutes. Colwill got on for some minutes, as did Tino. And Carol Eiting had a rare appearance as well. He got minutes too. As did, most importantly, I think, Danny Ward, who was back into some form as well. And Danny Ward had definitely a decent opening 45 minutes and did quite well in the second as well. So having players fit and on form is going to be key going into these playoffs. I think he's managed that quite well, Phil, Carlos, in terms of, the qualifying early's probably given us a little bit more, leeway, if you like. But, I think that's quite smart work from the head coach.
Yeah, it's nice for the players to get a couple of minutes into it. And sometimes if you've been rested or if you've not quite been, getting onto the pitch, obviously it's the time of the season where you need to be getting the results in. So, it gives a good chance for lads to get back on, to have some proper match minutes. You can't replicate match minutes in training. And like I say, I didn't see the game. I'm busy playing cricket. We all love cricket, don't we? But it just sounded like a typical home game, pretty simple. So I'm pleased pleased for the players who have that they can get a few. But it's what a big week they've got ahead now, and the whole group. It's down to the whole group now to make sure that they're pushing each other and prepared for the first game down at Luton. It's a massive game.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I was trying to think of other playoff seasons. We're normally in before. We've normally bombed a couple of games because we played a weakened team. We're coming in with doubts. Remember that Cardiff game, even though it didn't obviously matter in the end. And then the other seasons, obviously, we dropped in the playoffs when Phil's time, obviously, at Cheltenham that last day and the other stuff. But I can't believe it. It's just like it's like German efficiency, man. It just, you knew yesterday that the first 20, 25 minutes were like nothing, and I'm thinking, but you just knew we were going to win. It's absolutely incredible. It's almost, I don't want to be too overconfident, but it's just, I've never known a feeling like this for Town before, not even under Wagner, to be honest. I kind of felt we maybe had run a race a little bit. I wasn't that confident all against Wednesday, even though all these years on, I knew we were, well, I didn't. I thought we were giving us best shot. This is a team that's so, like, up for it. And again, I mentioned it last week, but like Dean says, make no mistake, these guys want it. And you can just see it. And I think the hardest job, we'll probably come on to it later, is what that squad or that team is going to be for Friday night. Because, wow, it's if the rumours are believed that, you know, Thomas is going to play with injections, and obviously Colwell's back, Ward, and wow, there's going to be some couple of unlucky guys, I think, on Friday missing out.
Oz, how did you see the game?
That's it, because you've silenced everyone with that expert.
I have. Pozza, what were the mood like yesterday in the stadium? Were people, were it one big party? Did people really want that third spot? Because it was such a weird day, wasn't it? Because like Luton, and I really wanted Luton, whichever way they finished. So early on, it looked like, you know, we needed to get that third spot. So to me, I were like, we need to win this game and obviously hope for a favour from Hull. So to me, it was a big game where I know a few have said bring on anyone, but I were kind of thinking we want that third, certainly from early doors when it would clear that.
Hang on. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can now, yeah.
Yep. Okay. I think good. Now let's talk about the game first, and we'll come to that next, don't we? Because you're jumping a bit ahead there.
Well, you went silent, Matt.
I asked Pause. I said to him, I said, how did you see the game, Pause? But for some reason, he didn't seem to get through.
I didn't hear you, mate.
So how did you see the game, Pause?
How did I see the game? With my eyes, Matt. That's how I usually see it.
Usually stood with your back to the game, aren't you? Doing the.
It was steady away, really. It had that typical kind of end of season vibe about it. I don't think Bristol came to do a right lot, if I'm being perfectly honest. They seemed pretty happy to just turn up, play and go home. We looked good, certainly first half. Moved ball around well. I thought we had a cracking, just after we'd scored, really, we had a cracking 15 minutes or so. Well, we played then we're out of character almost for this side. Moved it well, moved it quick, moved it fast. I thought Dwayne Holmes looked really well, who I'm not always a massive fan of. But I thought he stepped up yesterday and played really, really well. As Phil mentioned earlier, the players that came in, really good for them to get minutes in the legs, and really well managed by Mr. Corberan. I think he played those that needed to play and brought them off at the right time. You know, they just did enough to get a run out. So yeah, a cracking day all in, a 2-0 win. No injuries, minutes in the legs for people. Probably could have been more actually second half if we'd have, stepped it up and actually gone for it. But at 2-0, there were no need. We were securing playoffs and we were third or fourth. So second leg were always going to be at home regardless of results. So it were probably one of them nice matches for players to play in where there's not much riding on it. You can go out and maybe express yourself a little bit differently than you might normally, because there's not as much pressure and stuff. So yeah, I think a good day at the office all around for everybody, really.
Harry Toffolo, though.
Worry for me, possible. Pippa, I thought that would only worry. When are you going to get a red? I thought he was going to go for that,
For what?
Pippa's challenge. I thought he was going to walk for that. I was worried for about a few seconds.
Oh yeah, I remember now. I forgot completely about that, to be honest. But let's talk about the Toffolo goal, though. The goal, it was a great give and go, wasn't it, by Toffolo? And Danny Ward showing exactly what Danny Ward brings to the table as a striker, doesn't he? Great sort of work back to the goal, laid the ball off right into the path of Toffolo. And then Toff with a really good finish. 5 goals in 7 games. Toffolo, goal machine. Feed the Toff. He's on fire at the minute, isn't he?
Incredible. The only sadness, when you see the replay, he did 1-2. I mean, with the Bristol City defender, didn't he? But because at first I thought, has he gone through all the way, on his own? He's incredible. The guy looks like he's having so much fun. I've loving them pictures of him and his family after the game and that as well. And he's, you saw me last week, Norwich link with him, etc., etc. But you won't believe it. The guy just absolutely on fire. And he's just like another weapon to us and that as well. I know some people have kind of questioned his defensive abilities, but the way he's attacking, you always feel like a goal's going to come all the time and that as well. And It's incredible. I bet there'll be some shooties had him for first goal yesterday, you know.
Won't be too bad. You mentioned as well, Pods, didn't you, with Dwayne's intelligent ghosting as well? He pops up in those spaces really well, the half spaces, doesn't he, to sort of create. And, you know, we're sometimes a little bit critical of his short-range passing, aren't we? He can give the ball away a little bit too easily at times. But he's really good at popping up in those areas, isn't he, which really hurt teams. And he did that again for the second goal where he's popped, you know, he's got into a really good space on the inside right channel, and then he's found Danny Ward with a really good square ball. I think, like you say, you got to give Dwayne his due quite a lot, you know, for this season. You know, he does that really well, doesn't he? How he gets into really good areas. He reads the game really well. And really, it's just when he gets things right, he's a useful, like Kosi just said, he's a useful weapon, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He's like I say, I've been critical of Holmes, but when he plays like he did yesterday, you know, he's more than capable at this level. It was quite an interesting goal actually, because you see Danny Ward sort of set off to it, and really intelligent Holmes sort of says, "No, leave it to me, because you know you go get in box," and put it on a plate for him. Really, I know he kind of bundled it over the line in end, but you know, they all count, don't they? It was probably one of the most weirdly celebrated goals I've ever seen, because I don't think anybody knew whether it had gone in. I don't think anybody really was that bothered either, to be fair, that it had gone in. So it was a bit of a strange goal to sort of celebrate and stuff. But again, I think when you're playing in games like that, it does give you that little bit of freedom to you know, express yourself a little bit more, and there's not as much pressure on you. And you know, for somebody like Holmes, that's probably a good scenario for him to be him. And it's great that he's kind of firing on all cylinders. And you know, Toffolo's, as you've just said, you know, smashing them in. And it's just you look at a playoff situation, and I mean, obviously we're not privy to what goes on at places like Forest and Sheffield United and Luton and stuff, but from what I've seen on pitch, and you know, from the way that they did the sort of the lap of honour, for want of a better phrase, with the families and stuff, and the way that the sort of the players seem to be interacting with each other and stuff like that, that team spirit is just running through that team at the moment. And I think Nigel Pearson called it. It'll take a really good side to stop that Huddersfield Town squad getting at least to Wembley in these playoffs. So it'll be an interesting matchup, really. I know we're going to come on to the playoffs a little bit later on.
We'll come on to it in a sec, yeah.
Stuff, but I'm right looking forward to how both games will pan out, really. And, you know, may the best team win.
Yeah, so the game itself wasn't, you know, from then on, there wasn't really much happening. So, you know, Town saw the game out quite well, and we got minutes in the legs, etc. I thought what was, you know, let's mention Nigel Pearson very briefly as well. He was really sort of impressed by us, wasn't he? He said how we'd improved since the last time we'd played them. And he sounded like if you were allowed to bet, you know, with the Football League regulations, he might have a sneaky fiver on us getting promoted. It's not often you hear people saying nice things about Huddersfield Town, so it kind of stands out a little bit, doesn't it? It's quite good to sort of see that, wasn't it, Poz? And that, you know, people are actually starting to credit that this is a decent side, not just on a lucky run, as people have said. You know, it's a 46-game lucky run according to some, isn't it? But you know, it's good to finally see Town getting some of the praise, isn't it?
I think if you ask general people who actually know stuff about football, you know, managers, coaches, I think they'll all appreciate what Huddersfield Town are doing this season. I think it's a lot of it comes from, you know, Twitter football people done it. The crap. They're not
morons, you mean?
Like to watch. Well, basically morons, yeah.
Like us.
Yeah, I think it's nice for someone to actually come out and say that, because coaches are usually, they kind of flip it other way, don't they, and talk about their own team. For him to start off an interview with such a appraisal of Huddersfield Town, it was quite nice to hear, to be fair, yeah.
Yeah, very unusual. Right, go on, Cos.
I'll be honest, though, Matt. Sorry to be a party pooper, but his team were absolute garbage. He were being clever there, mate. You know, I'd like to, and it was quite funny because when I got sent this by a couple of people, so I were expecting when I pressed play for him to like slag us off, but I think really we're using us to, you know, kind of for their opponents, really. So yeah, I'll take the plaudits.
Do you think we're being ostriches?
Clever management.
Is that what you're saying?
Clever management, I think, from Pearson. Yeah, it's honestly, there was such great opposition for us, weren't there? And that as well. Same with Barnsley the other week. Honestly, they just had turned up, them two teams. Let's hope Luton don't either.
It'd be nice. Let's read out just a couple of comments. Have we got any comments in here? I think we do. Tommy, let's have a look on the game itself. Let's have a look. Tom Bradshaw says Phil Senior's biggest fan is here. So thanks for that, Phil. So Tom, even. And then Richard Stacey tried to throw in a clever quiz question, and Poz snaffled it straight off the bat there with the first player. See if Kosi gets this, unless you've looked at it. The first Town player to play in two playoffs 12 years apart.
Boothie.
No. Although to be fair, that's not too far off, is it? But Boothie didn't play in the early one. Boothie's about. I think Boothie played in a few before that. No, it was 12 years apart, and he played in. Phil will know because he played in that side in 2004.
Rob Edwards.
No. Yeah, he's got it as Phil. He's on mute, but he said iffy. I think I can lip read a little bit, but that was it. It was iffy and Yuri, yeah. Tony Gummersel says, "Who's your front three on Friday? Sinani, Ward, and Thomas." And that's quite a good question. Well, I think if Thomas is fit, he's got to play, hasn't he, for the set piece value, and Sinani probably. Yeah, I think that's probably what I'd go with, guys. Are we going with that? I think Dwayne would be a bit unlucky maybe, and the 3-5-2's kind of worked recently as well. So, and Tino's had a good fit and start here and there. So, there's options, which is quite good. Let's have a look what else we've got. Bez5678 says, now my hope for the season of mid-table mediocrity has been consigned to the dustbin. The horrible nervous sanity-sapping playoffs are upon us. God, I love and hate Huddersfield Town. Jody Calvert says, felt so nervous watching Wickham and MK Dons earlier, though this time around I'm much more relaxed than 2017. Incredibly proud of whatever happens. I feel the same. I'm a little bit more relaxed this time around because 2017 just felt like this is it. This is now or never. We're all Elvis Presley, weren't we? And was it Elvis who did that song? But, we were a little bit more chilled out this time because if we don't, then who knows? We could possibly be there at the dance again. Go on, Cos.
Don't you think that's bad? Don't you think that's bad though, Matt? Although I think it's one of those things we chilled out now, but come game night on Friday,
shitting ourselves, yeah,
we'll be absolutely, yeah, we will be. But that's what I'm trying to say before. It's because the team, there's no kind of any doubts now. Everyone looks like they're going to be fit, and this is just weird territory for me with Town. And I don't know at the moment. It's going to be a strange week.
We'll go through some of the former playoff campaigns a little bit later, and I think there might be some interesting points come out of that and how Huddersfield Town have not done very well in playoffs when we've gone into it in decent form, and when we've been crap going into it, we've pretty much done okay. So I think that'll be quite interesting when we go through that.
Sorry, Matt. Phil was going to say something there. What were you saying, Phil?
He's on mute again. In fact, let me unmute him. I've got you, Phil. There you go, bud.
No, we can hear it.
Everyone else can hear me apart from you, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's just the way that it's panned. Like you've just said it there. The way that it's panned out, it's quite relaxed. We've been in there. We're not chasing anything. We've just gone about as business. Back to the point where people talking about, I can't believe Town are in there. Well, we've just done our own business the way we want to play, and it suits some people, it suits others. Some of us don't like watching it at times, especially second halves at home. But we are where we are, and I think it's that kind of thing this year where we've just kind of sloped in. We're in there already. Everybody else around us is fighting tooth and nail to try and get in there, and we're just like sat watching, just thinking, well, where are we going to finish? Is it going to be 3, 4, 5, 6? That's the only thing that we've been looking at. So it's very random, hasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. We've got a message from Richard Stacey. Richard, I doubt Thomas will play, but I am doubting Thomas. Come on, Richard, you can do better.
That's quality.
Yeah. So, moving on slightly. So, playoffs, we now know who the 4 are going to be. Huddersfield Town finished 3rd, the highest finish I think Huddersfield Town have finished in the second tier since, would you say 1969-70? It must be, wasn't it? We know the 4, there was drama at Hull. Kosi, you watched. In fact, we'll go to you, Kos, because you watched a little bit of that. You were watching the Town game, weren't you, in Spain, obviously, and then you
flew back today again.
Yeah, flew back today, and then you obviously tuned in for the last few minutes of Forest and Hull, didn't you? Just tell us what was going on there.
Yeah, a bit naughty, really. I watched last half an hour of that game, and it was really weird. Forest, even kind of game of chess, really. We're almost like Forest were happy for a 0-0, which was strange, and then. Yeah, God, with a penalty, which seemed a dubious one to me. But then it was incredible. Like, I was thinking, because I really wanted the Friday night game, especially even more when I knew Luton were kind of in that 6th spot. So sensational, kind of the Lewis Potter, just like, and it was like across, really. I don't know, probably seeing the goal. It's just everyone wants it to go in and that as well. And it really weird. And the Forest commentators, because I thought, I'll listen to how they're feeling about it. They were pretty good, to be honest with you, because I just think Sheffield United have come in there kind of on the blind side. No one's really spoke about them, have there? And it were almost like Eckenbottom's done a really good job, I think, on the quiet. Especially without the firepower. I wanted to avoid, especially with the Yorkshire Derby element and that as well. Although some people probably preferred that, maybe being with the Saturday game and the extra tickets, etc. But this could look so bad if Luton beat us. But yeah, I wanted Luton so bad, so it was fantastic to get there. But I just want to, I know it's a new competition, we always got to look ahead, but I just want to reflect on the season, because the trouble is now it's going to be a disappointment if we don't go up. But that's the players for you as well, because we've done it. We've burgled in there, haven't we, before, and got up with about 15 points less than the team third or whatever. But I think we should just reflect on what a sensational season it's been and that as well. But the reality is that if we don't go up, it's going to be disappointing, Matt, isn't it? Don't you think? And that shouldn't be like that, because it's 46 games. It's not a lottery, it's the playoffs really, but
no, I don't think it is.
It just makes me. I think it will be judged on whether we go up or not, rather than what a brilliant season it's been. But I suppose we all know the rules, don't we? And I suppose if we snuck in 6, maybe like Luton have, would have been like that. But I just want to applaud everyone at the club. And, we go back to Phil making the drastic decisions last season for sticking with Carlos, for bringing the guys in. We've got, Lee Bromby, who's took so much stick, and it's got the players in that we needed and that as well. Obviously, Dean's come in and kept the party started. I feel there's a connection come back with the fans and the players missed and that as well. And I just think some of the figures at the club and that as well, I can relate to it all. It's just the whole package has just been sensational. It almost feels like we deserve that promotion. But I suppose if you listen to Sheffield's podcast and Forest, they'll think they deserve promotion. But I've got my club back, man, and it just feels so good. But let's be truthful. A week on Monday, if we've lost or we're knocked out of the playoffs, we'll feel bad, but we should feel it's been a great season. But it's weird as a playoffs, isn't it? It's all going to be on obviously these 2 games.
Yeah, but if you lose in the playoffs, it's the ultimate disappointment, isn't it? And then it's really hard to keep a clear head of what's gone before it. So, if we lose in the playoffs, there'll be a lot of people who'll go, we finished third, we've had more points this year than what we got under the Wagner season, etc., etc., etc. But it counted for nothing. And a lot of people will say that it counted for nothing because we didn't get promoted in the end. So, yeah, it's been an incredible season, especially considering everybody predicted us to be in the bottom 3, and even people that appear on this podcast predicted us to be in the bottom 3. A lot of us did. Jodie Calvert's online, and she's always positive, and she probably predicted us to be the highest. Jodie,
positive.
I know Jodie's more positive than those negative buggers, but positive, yeah. But we all thought we were going to be gash this year, didn't we? And we've ended up being absolutely brilliant. And like you say, Kosi, we've all sort of, not all of us, but I think the majority of people have joined, jumped back on the wagon, haven't they? We've got on the bandwagon. People are enjoying themselves watching Town again. It's not all about results. There are other things as well. There's, that we, as we mentioned last week, the whole thing behind Daz as well, and how the club have handled things like that and jumped in with things like that mean a lot to people like me and Pos, and all of us really. So the club are doing the right things. I think the club have done the right things all season. I don't think it's a Dean thing coming back in. I think the club have really done well all season with things like that. And, there's a lot of good people working there, and I hope we get promotion for the fans as well as, people like Robin Kennedale, Pos, who you always sing the praises of, don't you, in supporter services, and, the good people behind the scenes who deserve, the recognition or don't get the recognition, that they get. Lee Bromby, you mentioned, Kosi, we've sung his praises in the last few weeks, but, there are those things going around at the minute where people are saying, who's your player of the season, who's your unsung hero, etc. People are saying Oliver Turton, but there's a Ginger Cafu song, he gets sung every week. Lee Bromby is probably the unsung hero of Huddersfield Town because, it's one of those jobs where if you do it brilliantly, nobody talks about you, whereas if you make a mistake, everybody's on your back. Lee's done phenomenally there, and not only is he just the guy that goes and gets the players, but he's the guy that Carlos leans on when he needs help. He's the person that will guide Carlos through and say, look, Carlos, we're not doing quite well here, there, and there. We need to improve this, and Carlos will go away and work on it. And they both work in tandem. It's not just Carlos at the wheel of a massive container ship. So it's a real team effort, and I would love this football club to get promoted for these people because they fully deserve it.
I just think every time we've had a downer, we've come back. It's just a sign of quality. Middlesbrough game at home when they lowered us colours, and anyone with any kind of football nous would have said, right, they'll go on and probably challenge for top 2. I mean, I said that, and we'll drop out, and we didn't. The Bournemouth one was another one. Obviously, in March, this is our chance for automatic. And then I remember going in the varsity after the game, warehouse after the game, and And I were like, we're still there, we're still fighting. We're like, we won't be in playoffs, don't you worry about that after today. And it's like we're there. It's like even our own fans have doubted us at times. And every time we've had a setback, we come back and that as well. Obviously, that Fulham we got battered, but I think we bounced back. And maybe it was against Preston the Tuesday, was it? And then that's just sign of class, mate. It really is good. And I love what we're about. The Forest Cup game was a bit of an heartbreak, wasn't it? Because we had, we could have had Liverpool and stuff, but again, it didn't derail us. And we've got such great leaders in that team and people that just like
mental monsters. They call them, don't they? Like mental monsters. Honestly,
it's so good. We should be so proud of us, this club, man, team. But like it's all going to be defined in the next, 8 days.
Of course, yeah. Phil, pause, jump in and out.
Do you know? I'm just listening to obviously the comments regarding everyone who's done a good job, especially Lee Bromby and stuff. But I tell you what will be interesting, and I know it's the excitement of playoffs is here upon us. But what's going to happen after either or? So if we go up or we stay down, it'd be really interesting to see what plans they've got in place for next season in terms of player recruitment and thoughts. Because like I say, there's a few players out of contract, probably moving on. What kind of targets have they got if we do stay down? What kind of targets have they got if we go up? Do they have any at all? It's really interesting to, I've never really been involved in any of that process, and I bet to have a bit of an insight into what that room looks like in Bromby's office. With
hang on,
sure
Phil. Aren't you mates with Danny Schofield? Can't you just send him a quick text now and just ask him?
They're very professional, aren't they? I was stood with the other week. We were our two kids were at a tournament in Oakham, and I was still having a chat, and they don't really offer much up, to be honest. Apart from just kind of discussing, what the players and the groups kind of like, and like I mentioned before, there's massive positive signs coming out there where they were really positive about. The young lad from France went on loan to Harrogate, Diarra, is it?
Oh, Diarra, yeah, it's really good.
Really, really positive about him. So obviously there's a couple of players that maybe sneak in next year. But yeah, I just think it's a really interesting time at the moment. Like Kosi said, we're proud to be a Town fan at the moment. This is a major bonus for us because we never thought we'd get here. So what's the plans for next year? And obviously all will be revealed, hopefully. After whatever happens, but honestly, I just find it really intriguing because I think it's like the acid test there. If they get it right, whatever we do, whether we go up or stay down, we're in for a good ride again, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not worried.
I'm not worried to see.
I think that was the thing with 2017 because it felt like shit or bust, didn't it? Completely.
Yeah.
Because Wagner had gone, and then that was like the house of cards. David Wagner was the house of cards with that team, wasn't he? If he'd have gone, it'd have all come down. But there'd have been no Aaron Moy. There'd have been no, Hef's had his injuries after that. There'd have been no there'd have been no Adama Diakabi, and what a shame that would have been. But you know what I mean? There'd have been some real sort of, Tommy Smith might have gone. I think Brighton were interested in Tommy Smith, and it would have been difficult to keep that team together and Jan Ziva would have probably come in at that point as well. So. So we were probably saved from a worse fate maybe at that point. But yeah, it is interesting. But I'm not going to worry about that or think about that until after the playoffs. And let's have a look online what people are saying as well. So they've been listening to us long enough. Let's have a look. So I thought I said Steve Blackman then, but it's Steve Blackburn. We have a team playing and fighting for each other with everyone knowing their roles to a T. Looked like a well-oiled machine so far. I think that was the thing about Bristol City. It was just. We controlled that game as well. It was just so, we took the game. We went 2-0 up and just kept them at arm's length. I was really impressed. I know it wasn't the most exciting one, but I was really impressed with how we dealt with Bristol City, even though they might have been on the beaches with the towels down, etc. Dag Barnett says, I didn't understand why people were so pleased it was Luton. A very tough game in every sense, in the same way as they have nothing to lose. Joseph McGregor, he was messaging me earlier saying, what are you podcasting tonight? I've got lots of things to say. So come on, Joe, let us know exactly what you've got to say. Although he's only said so far, I predicted promotion. So I think he's just come on to. It's coming on to gloat. Although we're not promoted yet, Joe, so don't get too carried away. Poz is on about the lottery numbers to Joe as well. So well done, Poz. Poz is more involved in the YouTube comments at the minute. Jody says, I had faith in Carlos turning things around, but I did say 9th, not 3rd. I think she said 9th last season. I think you might have said a little lower this year, Jody, but I'll ignore Bez says, can Bromby repeat his transfer window miracle in the Premier League? And I think that's going to be a really interesting thing. That falls into what you were saying, Phil, that bit, because I think Town, I've had this conversation with other people before, and I won't name drop anyone because, it was more sort of mates and stuff. But, Town are really good at buying players in a bracket between 0 and like 1.5 million. And as soon as they've gone out of that bracket, things have gone a little bit mental, haven't they? Schindler 1.8, so we'll stretch it from 0 to 1.8. And Aaron Moy, obviously, but we had him on loan anyway, so he doesn't count. So Town have proven they're really good at buying cheap players like Sauber and developing and things like that. And we have done for the last 10 years. But outside of that, a little bit sketchy. And I think if you're buying Premier League players, then who knows? But there are some good free transfers available, Phil, this summer. Jed Wallace, people like that available. It wouldn't be a bad idea. But let's cross that bridge when we come to it and get too carried away. Dag Barnett says it doesn't matter what we think because the players believe they can do it, and that's possibly our X factor. That's a credit to lots of people. Terriers 7 and 2 says if we do go up, then I doubt Edmonds, Green, or Diarra will get a chance and will be another season loan probably. And Ponty Terry says our set pieces could be the difference as well. So there's a lot of pluses that Huddersfield Town have in our armoury, which is really interesting. So when we mentioned that we know who the 4 are going to be, it was really interesting to see that the whole Forest thing, because I wanted Luton based on the injury situation at Luton. If Luton get all the players back, they are tough. Honestly, they are similar to us. They are a very sort of direct but tough side. They are very good when they have a full strength side at Luton. They've got Adebayo up front, who we missed out on signing last year. They've got Alan Campbell in midfield, who's been really impressive. Berry, Henry Lansbury. They've got the guy on the wings, really impressed with this year. Fred Onyedinma, really good player. James Bree has had an excellent season. He's out of contract as well in the summer. He plays sometimes right centre back, but he does the overlapping thing and gets forward really well. He's had a really good year after he was at Barnsley. Phil, you might remember him. He was at Barnsley as a right back, and he followed John Stones in getting a big move to Aston Villa, but that one went down south, and he's just recovering now and showing what a quality player he has or is. They've got Bradley at centre back, who's a big unit, big nasty defender. So they are a good side, Luton. They're a very, very good side, well drilled. Similar to us in terms of how structured they are. So it's not. I don't think it'll be a game for the purists at times. I think it'll be really tough. I think it'll be aggressive, and and it could be like it's been mentioned, a set piece or something like that could decide it either way. And I genuinely think if Luton are at strength, it's a real 50-50 game. Kosi, you look like you want to jump in there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we did only recently when we played them on the Monday night and that as well. It's like history repeated, isn't it? Monday night, a week tomorrow,
and that could have gone either way, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think it does worry me a little bit. I were at our cricket club last night. There were people coming up to me saying they were booking this and that for Wembley, and we'll beat them, no problem, and all this lot. And I'm thinking, they were like Leeds fans who are on
Chesties.
Hang on a minute, you're on, yeah. So I don't like that. And obviously Friday, you've got to think that they probably thought. I thought they'd beat Reading, but after Fulham destroyed them last Monday, they might have thought we're done here, especially with all their injuries. So they've got in there. So it's almost like they deserve to be in there. To be fair, they've been up there with us, but they'll be ready for us on Friday. The place will be bouncing. It's an absolute bear pit there at Luton. I've only been there once. Phil, you like it, don't you? But I was stunned.
It's an intimidating place to play. They're right on top of it. I tell you what, cause who do you think Luton would have wanted?
I just think they were happy to be in there, Phil, to be honest with you.
But if they could pick a team out of the 3, who do you think they would have wanted to play?
Forest, I reckon.
I don't know.
I think either Forest or Sheffield United. Yeah. I don't think.
I think Sheffield United will beat Forest in that other playoff. I've got a feeling, and that would mean nothing, man. But
I'd like them to. I'd like them to.
Another thing as well, obviously on Friday, it's like we're only going to have 1,000 fans, which we'll talk about later on with the tickets and stuff like that as well. But the one thing is, how can we tell Carlos what to do and what have you and stuff? But the first leg of the playoffs, to me, there seem to be poor games. I watched both the Wickham and obviously with Taylor Barrett sent off. I didn't see it tonight, but I watched that Sunderland and Wednesday game on Friday night and that as well. And to me, it was just about staying in the game. Really, and it does worry me that, because it's like I don't like, just that kind of tactics. But to me, I just think just go out and try and win it. Never mind we've got the home leg and stuff. So I just hope he doesn't overthink it. A la Pep maybe does sometimes in the big games. It does. I'm not used to being the favourite, Phil. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not used to being the favourite.
It's just nailed it as Pos. We have to win the away game because we've never won a home leg in the playoffs. So we have to win the away game.
We always lose at home, so we need to win 3-0 away, don't we? We'll lose 2-0.
Have we had 5? I think we've. How many playoff campaigns have we had? I think we've 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think we've drawn 5 of them at home or something like that, and then lost 3 or 4.
We've never won a home leg in playoffs.
No, there's Bournemouth on penalties, but that doesn't really count, does it? Over there,
it doesn't count, does it?
Doesn't.
We've got the best team though to play, haven't we? I mean, God, Luton podcast will probably play this back when they beat us, but
yeah,
we have, haven't we? We have.
I don't know, mate, because if they have the full strength side back, they are very good. And there's pros and cons of looking at all 4. Really, you look at Sheffield United and think, look at Sheffield United's playoff record. They've been in 10 and never won a single one. So that people point to that. You look at Nottingham Forest, and people will say after Forest lost to Bournemouth, they had a bit of a hit. You know what I mean? They failed to beat Hull when they needed to probably win to finish third. Lost to Bournemouth after not doing well second half. At Forest, people look at that, but Forest, you spin that on its head, and Forest are the best side this year going into it. I think you can look at different positives and negatives of all 4 teams, really, including us.
Yeah, I know, because they said we're favourites against Luton, and on paper we probably are. But again, that's just
worries me.
I think all 4 of them teams that are in there, they're all as equal as you're ever going to get in a playoff campaign, I think.
It's genuinely, everyone's got a 25% chance, don't they, I think?
Exactly. People will talk about Forest because they're not in Forest. People talk about Sheffield United because, historically decent. And they'll probably laugh at Town and Luton are even playing each other for a place in Premier League, because that's how people look at football teams these days. They just look at the club name and they don't know anything about what's gone on. They just look at Luton and another stadium, so they're obviously crap how they got there. Huddersfield haven't spent any money. They're obviously crap how they got in there, kind of thing. But you look at Town's record against the 3 teams that are in there this season, and it's been pretty decent. And we've beaten a couple, we've lost to a couple, so there's no nailed on favourite this time, I don't think. But it does have a little bit of shades. I know we keep talking about 2017 because it's so easy to do, isn't it? But it has a little bit of shades of the it's going to be Fulham v Wednesday final. And
everyone's looking at that Sheffield United Forest thing, aren't they?
Yeah.
Everyone's looking at that going, the winner's going to come from that, aren't they? And us and Luton will just do our thing, I think.
Football don't work like that. And I think the way that Town play, if we execute our plan the way we can execute it, I'm not scared of anybody.
I might get slagged off here, but I'm delighted VAR is being used for it. I can't believe for a division like ours with what's at stake that it hasn't been used for it and stuff. When I walk out of them grounds, I don't know, people will say, well, they've got this wrong and that wrong. When we walk out of them stadiums, both legs and what have you, we'll know that if we've lost, it'll have been proper loss. Not like, I know you could argue, if there were a Maradona kind of incident and stuff like that as well, that'd be more heartbreaking. I'm glad, all right, we might have to temper his celebrations, but to me, that just adds to the excitement. Honestly, this week's going to be a long week for us Town fans. Every day is going to feel like 48 hours. It's so exciting, and
as long as Jeremy Simpson's not in the VAR room, I'm okay with it. I think that's
it's going to be so exciting, and it's like before. The worst thing, you're watching all these other playoffs like Hillsborough tomorrow night, second leg and stuff, and I think with Jody when it mentioned there, the MK Dons of Wickham, it's our turn Friday. It's going to be absolutely off the scale, man. I can't believe it. We're in the playoffs for the big boys league. It's incredible.
And I think the only thing I've written down about Luton is beware the wounded animal, because that's 7-0. They seem to have reacted quite positively to that. So
yeah, that Lewis O'Brien thing, that's got to be a smokescreen load of bollocks, Phil, hasn't it? Come on.
Why?
Smoke Phil looks.
Hip injury and stuff. Mate, please tell me that.
I'm going mind games.
About people at club, and no one's giving me anything, man, about any injuries. God, people are.
Yeah, they will do, won't they? Well, they will do. It's that time of year, isn't it, where when you're in this situation now, you want to keep everything close to your chest. So, I mean,
he'll play, won't he?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
You tell. I mean, talking about Sorba Thomas, and I would always say I wouldn't risk somebody who was not fully fit. That's just my opinion. I'd rather have someone who's fully fit and 3/4 of a player that wants than someone who's not fit. But you try and tell Lewis O'Brien not to play if he's struggling with a little bit of a niggle. He's playing all day.
Phil, this is a weird question, but playing under night on this under lights on Friday night compared to on an afternoon with no lights and stuff. What is that as a player? Does that have any bearing, or does it make you feel like more excited and stuff like that as well, or not really? It's just
I think the night games were. I think they were a lot more tense. I think the afternoon games it's just you run of the mill, but I don't know. It just for me, it just seemed that the night games it just seemed to be a little bit more on it. But it's going to be. When you were talking earlier, I'd take a draw down there. I really would. I'd take a 10-spot draw down there.
Well, you don't want to play for it though, Phil. There's two.
No. I don't. But we've talked about this all year, and a lot of people talk about the fact that we've got the kind of game that suits playoff football. It's quite composed and thoughtful, and we're solid in as a defensive pack. So I don't think we're going to change much. I really don't. I think we've been doing it. We've been playing the kind of way that you'd expect us to play in this playoffs all season. So if it means we're going to have a couple of crap second halves, 2 more crap second halves to come, that'd be great for me.
Phil, it's going to be so feisty. If you think of that first game, remember we got charged for not controlling his players, as obviously they did.
Yeah.
A bit of handbags, but obviously spilled over. They're the desperation stakes for probably Luton are thinking it's now or never. A bit like going to be like whatever team they got that are home the first leg, they've got honestly they're going to throw everything at us. It's going to be an absolute war.
Yeah, that crowd down there, they get behind them, and it's it's not one of those stadiums. It's right on top of you, and that little bit of pressure the first leg. If we go under the cosh a little bit, it's going to take quite a good few characters to stand up and be counted and drag it back round. So.
Positive, we've got that, Phil. I think
I do, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Nichols is just a perfect example. First time got crowd getting up and just let Lee Nichols roll around on the floor for 5 minutes with ball or something stupid. You know what I mean? No, they're inverted commas shithouse tactics that we've kind of developed this season, and I'm all for it. And I think I always think back to Millwall. Under Clark, was it? And we went there, and our players just shriveled.
Do you know what? I still lose my head with that because Gary Roberts was embarrassing. He was playing left wing, and he was actually playing in behind the striker. He was that worried about staying out wide.
I remember Robbie Williams not going to get ball because it was close to the stand.
Yeah.
I don't
absolutely ridiculous.
I see this team. This team will stand up and be counted.
I tell you what, if someone did that in this team and they walked into that change room, Mike Pearson would have a bad neck.
Sort of atmosphere, but we can create that sort of atmosphere in our stadium as well. So,
also, we're going to ask you about that. Do you think because Matt, you texted me earlier on, and it was interesting. Does worry me a little bit. We got 19,000 there yesterday, but are our fans going to create that cauldron that we need? It's almost like before we were like, wow, this is. I suppose maybe not though, because you think that Wednesday game, I know you felt a bit weird at that. The crowd would get, I think, 19,000, but it didn't feel like an atmosphere. They're going to be like loving it. Probably there'll be people on hill from about 2 in the afternoon at Luton want to be one big party. They'll be up for it, massive. It does worry me, kind of like speaking to some of our fans. It's like some of them might not even go. I can't believe it. It's like bloody hell. It's a playoffs semi-final. Do you think? Obviously, you guys have posted about the march and what have you before the game. Do you think I'm a bit unduly worried for no reason when we can just, everyone's going to turn up and we're going to have that, party? Because I don't know, it's just weird at the moment, mate, with some of our fans.
Yeah, I think it'll all depend, obviously, what happens in first leg. That can have a big bearing on an atmosphere. But I remember we played, I can't remember the team now. Someone will be able to remind me. We're in a semi-final. Carlisle, I'm tempted to say. I think we were 3 or 4-0 down in first leg and nobody gave us any hope in hell. I don't think we went through, but there were only about 8,000 there, and that atmosphere that night was probably one of the best that stadium's ever had. I think there's a lot of bravado causing sometimes about town fans and stuff like that. I'm not going to bother going because X, Y, and Z. And I think when push comes to shove, it's easy to say that you're not that bothered, but you get in a stadium on a playoff semi-final 5 minutes before kick-off, and if you don't that doesn't really want to get behind your team, then you might as well not bother going at all, because there's no way that you could just go and just be like, well, it's just another game, because it's not, especially in Championship playoffs as well, to get to Wembley, and then who knows what might happen. So I'm fully confident, and obviously, on Saturday it were a decent amount of noise, not just from South Stand either. Kilman were pretty full, and they were making some noise as well. So it seemed more like a party atmosphere rather than a intimidating atmosphere on Saturday. But I think on Monday night, if we need to, sort of get behind the boys, then I can't see any reason why anybody wouldn't. I think £20, absolute masterstroke from Town. So massive hats off to them. People obviously renewing season tickets this month as well. So to make it £20 for an adult is hopefully they'll be rewarded with a full house.
Yeah, I hope they're not getting charged 32 quid for Luton away just because we've only got 1,000. They know that's all we can get. Absolute bollocks, man. You want that for the league game?
Oh, I'm the same. I'm just hoping that people get down to the ground and really really roar this team on, pause, because these lads deserve it, don't they? They've given everything all season. Our crowds have been all right; they've been fine. But I think we can maybe do a little bit better for the playoffs. Get it full, get over 20,000 in there. The tickets are a decent price, 20 quid. Tell your mates, tell your brothers, tell your sisters, tell your parents, tell everyone. Get everybody down there and let's get Huddersfield Town over the line into Wembley, because it's huge. These are huge games against Luton, and they're going to need everyone, every drop of. Phil's mentioned before on the podcast, that the support of the fans really does count. It does count. Get people down there, and open your mouths and get cheering, and let's do our bit, and hopefully the players will do theirs as well. So that's all I've got to say.
When you think of the playoff games, I might come on it now. I don't know if I'm nicking your running order, Matt, but it's like
I'll go for it.
When I look at the defining moments in Town, obviously we're never going to win an FA Cup or what have you, even though, we've already done that and we don't want to win it again. But it's like...
It's only you remembers it.
There's some stuff that's just etched in your memory and that as well. There's so many... They're incredible. Town have this great knack, don't they? We never seem to get through comfortable, or we get knocked out in tears and stuff. It's never anything straightforward with Town, and it'll be like that these next two and that as well. It's... Obviously, Brentford and God, I don't even know where you start. All our games just seem to be absolute epic.
Let's do it in chronological order then, mate, because, Peterborough was... Yeah. I was, 10, something like that, 10, 11, when we played Peterborough. And I remember...
Were you born?
Pause is an old man. He looks...
92, 93, wasn't it?
1992. He looks older than the rest of us, does Pause?
Yeah, 45 next year.
But I just remember I went to the away leg. It was like one of the first away games I've ever been to, and I just remember the noise behind the, in that away end. It was standing. It was absolutely rocking. I've never, I've seen very few atmospheres like that. It was so loud. And recently I've been doing a few videos for Ian Dunn and a few other little bits, and I found some of the footage from behind the goal, and it's absolute carnage behind there, and it's phenomenal how loud it is. It's real sort of cup football, European football. It's brilliant. And I remember going down there, and I think there was a bit of a sense cause of job done, because we got the draw and they scored in the last minute, but we dicked them. And, we just thought, do you know what, we've got these. And then we scored early at our place, didn't we? And to be honest, the shades of Barnsley with it, because we were the better side for three halves. And then after this, in the second half, it as a kid, it destroyed me, because it's the first real time I've had to. I'll be honest, I cried and had 3 days off school when we didn't get Spurs in the FA Cup, when Blackpool came and beat us in an FA Cup, a delayed match against Blackpool. But that absolutely ruined me inside. That it was the first proper real heartbreak when I think, was it Worrell Sterling scored, and then was it Cooper or something like that scored for Peterborough? That cross in and the diving header, and them all going mad with 5 minutes left, and it's like, shit, it's over. And
horses on the pitch, mate. There were a bit of bother after, but again, a lot of it's tailored. I think how the season went, and I just felt again it were like we would. I suppose everyone's going to say that in a place, but I thought we'd had it snatched away. We deserved that promotion, at least to get to the bloody final, and to not even to do that, it was just heartbreak. I remember Jacko in tears and on the pitch, and and obviously after that, this is what Phil was saying earlier. Like, where do we go after the players? Because I think history with us,
we were shit the year after.
Yeah, we shit, don't we? We just kind of get relegated and stuff. So it was a long time between drinks till
Mick Buxton,
back in there.
Mick Buxton had to come back and save us the year after. You might remember he came back, didn't he, as assistant to Ian Ross, and and saved us. But that Peterborough game was an absolute shocker. Brentford, Brentford, 94-95 was the first time we did it, and Brentford, the Brentford away game is probably one of the people's most favourite moments as a Huddersfield Town fan. And I just remember not being able to go because I were 13 or something at school. Nobody I knew was going down to London, and I wasn't allowed to go on a travel coach by myself, according to my mum, as a 13, 14-year-old. So it's the only playoff game, the only leg that I've not been to. And I was gutted. I absolutely devastated because it looked phenomenal. Cos, did you manage to get down there, or were you...
I was there.
Scoring?
I walked 10 minutes after the game to ring my mum from the phone box just to say how happy I was that we'd got promoted, put him with 10p's.
Do you not reverse calls?
Oh.
I don't reverse it, mate. I reverse charges.
Do you remember that?
Oh,
Dodgy phone box.
My abiding memory of that is listening to it on the Pulse in the kitchen at home, and we had this stereo in the kitchen listening to it, and I were just a wreck. I couldn't listen to any of it. I just honestly I couldn't listen to it. I went upstairs during the penalties. I remember sort of walking into the living room and Pat Scully missing. And I was just in an absolute mess inside. And I walked, and I just went, I can't listen to it. And my mum was listening to it with me. I just said, just let me know when it's over. And I just remember her shouting, "Oh, stupid goalkeeper!" when I was going up the stairs. And I just sat in my bedroom, just in my head in my hands. And I remember 5 minutes later, my mum just like opening the door, and she went, "Matt, like what? We're going to Wembley." And it was brilliant. I remember running downstairs and. I was in the bottom tier, and it's a bit similar to Luton there, really. But you're almost like below sea level, like in that Brentford away bottom tier and stuff. And I just remember, just like you couldn't see much. You were looking through like players' legs and stuff like that as well. And I just remember when Bully come up to take it and that as well. And obviously, I can still see it kind of now in my head when he spins around and he kind of, and honestly, you just saw him just run off and then the players run towards us and. It was incredible. Inflatable bananas were being thrown that night. Do you remember them? They were good, weren't they? Bully doing his handstands, weren't they? Ronnie Jepson just going mad. And
it felt like we'd achieved something special then, Matt. But then part of you thinks, well, hang on a minute. I suppose hopefully we'll have a playoff final special in a week or two. But part of you thought, well, hang on a minute. Well, we've done is got to final. But because it was Wembley and stuff, and then obviously we got there the year before in the Autoglass and that as well. It was like, wow, we're back again, and it's just brilliant.
Yeah, Bristol Rovers and I think my abiding memory of that one is being right behind Boothie's header as it just went into the top corner. It was so perfectly behind it, and then Marcus Stewart just running as ragged, and how amazing he was. But Gareth Taylor also missing the easiest chance I've ever seen on a football pitch, where I think Stewart hits the bar and it sits up for him to volley in from a yard out, and he slices it and. You just know it's your day,
We're
don't
only
you?
dealing in semis, though, Matt.
Are we dealing?
We only got semis on tonight, mate.
I'm
trying to think. Oh, the next one.
Might need to see a doctor, mate. But
the next one was the one that's probably the most unnoticed playoff season ever that no one kind of really talks about. Lou Macari's also runs. We had no look towards us at all, even by his own fans that year.
No.
And we managed to amazingly get in them playoffs, but it was almost like Brentford's karma, wasn't it? Brentford's revenge time. And
yeah, we were falling apart, weren't we? Towards the end of that season, I think players were falling off with injury. And I remember Gerald Eiffel playing away at Notts County, and Damien Delaney, who ended up being a decent centre back, playing left midfield.
Yeah.
And and Notts County beat us, didn't they, to stay up? And that wasn't a good sign the week before. And I remember Boothie having 2 disallowed goals in the home leg, and laughing at Lloyd.
Didn't he have like 3 minutes at Brentford as well?
Yeah, that left keeper dropped it in, didn't he? He hit it from outside the box, and keeper dropped it.
We were listening to that radio, thinking that's probably too early.
Yeah, do you know? I just remembered that my mate laughing at Lloyd Owusu because he did an article in one of the newspapers saying how he thought he was the next Didier Drogba, and then he absolutely stuck one in the top. And we all laughed at it, and then he absolutely stuck one in the top corner to level it. And I think Brentford deservedly got through there, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And I remember that season, Matt, just thinking it was a miracle. That were like an achievement. So it was totally different feeling. Say if we lost to Luton, it was almost like unfinished business here, where that just felt we'd done as much as we can. Obviously, Leon Knight wasn't available, and that was massive, wasn't it, in the game?
Yeah, Leon. And that's weird. Looking back, that's really weird, that, because Leon Knight got sent. Looking back, I thought Leon Knight got sent off in the last home game, but he actually the really weird way they did it was the suspension didn't kick in for 2
You
weeks.
get to play after you got.
He played like 3 games after he got sent off, and then he got suspended. It was really weird.
I
That.
remember that as well. Like,
Yeah,
you
they
get
should have,
sent
yeah.
off and then you had to play a couple of games.
Yeah,
and then that's when your suspension came in. It was weird.
Yeah, it's stupid how things. I think it was to give you 2 weeks to appeal or something at the back then, but never did, and he missed the 2 games, which was a bit of a shocker. But the next one, I think there's only one man who can talk us through the Lincoln semi from 2004, and that's Phil. In fact, that's Pos. No, I'm joking. That's Phil. You know, Phil. That
I didn't even go in there.
Pozza doesn't watch the games.
I've only ever been to 2 away playoff. Like,
Shocking.
She's really weird.
Shocking.
But anyway, go on, Phil.
Phil, tell us about that Lincoln, because they stuffed us in the league at their place, didn't they? 3-1 they beat us. Gary Taylor-Fletcher scored, didn't he, at Sincil Bank?
Yeah, we hated going there.
Keith Alexander.
Gaffer would always putting things on the wall about what Keith Alexander had said to about the lads in papers and stuff, and they were just horrible. They were, and you know, it's a way of getting your players to play for you, isn't it? And they were nasty, they were awful, like coming past change rooms, banging on doors, all that kind of boring stuff. But just trying to intimidate, and yeah, it were tense. It were a good game. What score was it there, Spot? Did we get the advantage?
We won 2-1. David Murphy scored.
Yeah.
Well, how much of the
God,
game
his eyebrows off at corner.
how much of the game was stoked up with that? Because I remember that Pavel Abbott unbelievable offside, the infamous.
Yeah.
Hey, that wasn't offside. That wasn't offside. It's the rules.
I still can't.
The rules that
have
season.
No idea whether that is offside or not.
Do you know, shall I explain why it's not offside? And it's rubbish. The rules are rubbish. But what they had that season, they had zones, so you could only be offside in a zone. So when the ball got played forward to Boothie, that was the zone which you give the decision on. And then the thing is, Boothie doesn't flick it comes off Ben Futcher. And then that goes into another zone. Then that technically went into another zone at that time where Pavel Abbott stood. And it's a ridiculous rule that got scrapped after that season. But because Ben Futcher flicked it and not Boothie, it gave onside. Yeah, it did.
They used
honestly.
it to their.
It was so far offside that he wasn't offside. Is that what
No,
you're
weird,
saying?
In any other season's rules, Pavel Abbott is offside. But that season, because of the zone thing that they were using, he were onside, and that's why they give it.
They used it to their advantage, because I remember going down there and their fans were nasty. They were like,
they were.
I can't remember that referee. They knew his name. They were like, Huddersfield scum, this, that, and other, and they were getting really tasty before. So again, a bear pit situation, a bit like Luton, but Ife could hardly walk that.
Yeah.
I remember
That's
that.
what I was just going to mention. Yeah.
It would have funny. He just like, honestly, he didn't even move for that corner. He just went like that.
I'm sure if you look at that, he must have come off his eyebrows because he doesn't. He just sort of moves his head like that.
Yeah.
The only things I remember about those were literally after the playoffs and stuff, and us going out and Jacko getting us all out and over at hotels and going out in Chester and just doing loads of mad stuff. But that home fixture was just so
wild,
tense.
man.
Jesus Christ, it was so tense. You just literally, even like us as subs and stuff, we were just sat on the edge of our seats, and you were up and down, and bless Macca, little roll over to Rob, and what finish that was.
How loud was that? How loud was it, Kosi? When Rob Edwards hit the back of the net.
Falling around his ears. It was incredible. It was one of the most iconic things I've ever known at a stadium. So I walked out in Kilner that night and walked out to the away fans, and there must have been the only time I've ever seen this before when I went to that Champions League final when they were Atletico Madrid played Real, and there were fans crying. There were Lincoln fans crying, like sat down, sort of went crying in tears. I like patted a few on head. I felt sorry because I'm a softie, mate.
Nice one. Oh, never mind.
No, it's like
proper condescending.
They thought they had it. And they lost it. But when that Schofield and Edward, honestly, the scenes are absolutely wild.
Like for us, it was like one of them where it happened, and then we were on pitch, and we were like, you didn't know which direction to run in. You wanted to run all the way down to the bottom of the pitch, or you wanted to go and grab hold of Jacko, or you just wanted to go and like belly flop up flight. It were so random. You just didn't know what to do. Like everyone was just like looking at each other. It was a real strange situation.
Town do it all the time. Yeah. Let's do this hell, man. We don't want it this time. Bloody hell.
Speaking of hell, the Barnsley one in 2006 now. We went there and we were class at Oakwell. There was about 6,000 Town fans behind the goal. It was absolute racket, amazing noise.
Yeah.
And I remember Danny Schofield hitting the post and Boothie doing well, and we scored a really crap goal, to be fair, didn't we? I think Gary Taylor-Fletcher got it. But Nick Colgan might have a few questions about that, but he had a decent season that year. And
I thought we were through, Matt.
Yeah, I did.
I thought we were through. I got cocky. I thought we were through.
Do you know what though? I think we all did as well. I don't think we were overly confident.
We were better than them, Phil, in that season.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. I think it were because we were so convincing there. It was one of those, like we said before, coming home to our spot. We thought, do you know what? We've got it in locker here. But there were a couple, obviously. I think the ball popped out of Rab's hands, didn't it? And a few things that wouldn't normally happen. So it's his fault, really.
Yeah, we'd have got to Cardiff if Phil were in goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I remember their midfield.
Yeah.
People were handing like leaflets out for minibuses and coaches to put it Cardiff against final.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just refused to take one because I just thought that's just too presumptuous.
I can't cope with that stuff like that. But
the one thing I remember when they got their
not wise, is it? But
one thing I got to remember when I got their third is, it sounds bad this, but I don't condone it. But he spoke for me that night. The guy, when Rabs cocked up, he smashed his seat, he ripped his seat and threw it against the fence. It killed about and walked off. You know what? And I look back, thought, what? I just thought he spoke for us all that night.
But
performance, Phil. Yeah. Oh,
that midfield,
I can never forgive him.
That Barnsley midfield though was top notch. When they had McPhail, didn't they? The ex Chester midfield. He was decent. Devaney, Shuka. They had a really good midfield, I remember, and even Paul Reed at the back were pretty decent.
Chris Shuka,
And I think
Worthy scored, didn't he? Worthy scored?
It was again another really bad goal, that, because he tackled the keeper and it chested. Eckingbottom ended up smashing it in his own net as well, didn't he? As it was going over the line, he just like smashed it over. Really weird.
But you know, like them others, obviously, we'll come on to other ones in a sec, but I felt that night it had gone. You know, when they got in front, I didn't see us. I felt we were finished. And even when Worthy scored, I thought we were shot. After an hour, I think we've done it. We've ballsed it up.
Do you know what's a really good?
Just felt it.
We needed VAR that night, because the penalty that was given was bollocks. It was Danny Schofield pushed, was it Hassel? And he's about 2 or 3 yards outside the box, isn't he? And that really swung it as well. I think Barnsley were knocking anyway, weren't they? But you know that decision sort of really helped swing the game as well.
What a manager! Get him in, sign it off. We did, didn't we?
Yeah, that went well. Let's move on from Barnsley, and then the next one, another one we didn't particularly enjoy, was Millwall, wasn't it? And I remember the angry scenes from the Millwall fans. There was the Waterloo incident, wasn't there, where they all jumped out of a minibus and. Oh, the Vuvuzela. That was the Vuvuzelas. But I just remember we won like mosquitoes, weren't they? Like flashing around. But I remember winning in the game on Sky, and Peter Clark scored with a header, didn't he? We won 1-0 in the Sky game in the league, and then we actually played them in the playoffs. The attendance was less than what it was in the league. And we just didn't seem to really believe that.
The game was terrible. Well, one of the worst I've ever seen in the playoffs.
We just didn't seem to believe we were going to do it, did we? And they just stiff-armed us, didn't they? And they had the experience. They had a better side, really, when they had Morrison and Robinson and whatnot, and Jimmy Abdu. I think he played in midfield, and they just sort of played that sort of tough attritional football, and we sort of really sort of faded. And I think that was the game really, which really messed with Lee Clark as his promise as a manager, because he still denies it, but he changed completely as a manager after that game. He went away from his.
When he goes to sleep at night and closes his eyes, he still sees that Millwall away match in his dreams, in his nightmares as it'll be, because as you say, Matt, that ruined him really, didn't it? And I think he were trying so hard to right that wrong over next season, that eventually it took a bit of an hold on him, didn't it? And as you say, it kind of ruined his career almost as a manager, anyway.
Yeah, because do you remember going down to Millwall and we had that bubble? And I remember the bubble on the way out. They'd won the game, Millwall. This was the thing. They'd won the game. And on the way out, there's people on street corners yelling, screaming, throwing stones at the minibuses. And that was just the women. You know what I mean? The blokes were even worse. It was, honestly...
You know what, though, Matt? Though, I'll tell you what, this might be bad having to go to his own fans, but, you know, we slagged the team up, but the fans didn't turn up. It's about 1,200 fans. And it would have Tuesday night and blah, blah, blah. But
we were there.
We bottled it. The fan base bottled it, mate, that night.
We were there, mate. We were there.
That tunnel looks up and there's no one there. It's like, what a load of shit. But obviously, That was a bad night.
Hello, pause. Were you there?
Clark should have signed.
I was working, so.
He should have signed Jamie. He should have signed Jamie Vardy. Clark. That was his problem.
Yeah, we didn't, did we?
Oh.
But let's move on to the next year. The next year was the Bournemouth.
No.
And
this is good one now.
do you know what? Because the away game, Bournemouth battered us really. And Donald McDermott, whatever happened to him, he scored for them. Zinedine Kilban, yeah. Do you know what? My favorite memory of this, Kosi, and I think we went on the same bus. Did you go on the Millbridge as well?
Yeah.
And I remember at the back of the Millbridge bus, there's like Dig One, Scoff, and Tony Walsh. And Tony's my mate. And I remember Tony sort of going, do you know what? Sleeping's cheating. Because it was like 3 o'clock meet, wasn't it? Because of fucking Sky. And the game kicked off at 12 o'clock or something, didn't it? And I remember...
Really, man.
Yeah, it was stupid. We had to meet at 3 a.m. And I remember Tony Walsh going, oh, no, it's a drinking culture. You can't sleep. And and I remember him going and meeting at like 3 o'clock. And he's like, have you been to sleep? And I had been to sleep. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I ain't sleeping. Sleeping's cheating, blah, 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 blah. And then he's on the booze all the way down. And I remember when the corner came over, I think it must have been Gary Roberts whipped it. It was a left footer, wasn't it? And Zinedine Kilban glanced it in. I remember jumping up and down with my mate Tom and turning around. And Tony Walsh were absolutely K-lined out cold like on this seat. And he didn't wake up until we got back into Huddersfield on the way back. We had to sort of like walk him out onto the coach, and he was absolutely done over. And on the way up, I think Diggers and everyone, Kosi, would like put like lipstick on top of his head and stuff like this because he passed out, and there are all sorts on it. But, you know, really good memories, those, you know, going on the bus and, you know, and Tony, you know, and his sleep deprivation, really good fun. And the home game, cause you must have thought it were done like I did at 3-2 when Danny Ings is doing his silly face.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah, little prick.
Incredible, mate. What a night. And again, it's just like, I know everyone's got their playoff memories, but our club just seems to have so many dramatic ones. And Anthony Kay, let's say a man who divided opinion in the fan base for sure. Don't think there were many of his T-shirts getting sold in club shop, but
what a header! What a header!
But you know what? The winnings went in, and obviously scored winning penalty. But yeah, his header at the other end. I remember being in the lower tier, the North Stand, and oh my word, the noise when it went in, it was sensational, man. And the penalties, it's just a famous night, wasn't it? Just an absolutely famous night.
Did you feel that when they were walking around at Lee Clark, I remember had his own family walking around with him at the time. Did you feel that there was a certain we've done it feeling when they were doing the lap of honour? Because I kind of felt that at the time, like they were going a bit over with it. I know people do celebrate.
I felt that was a season I felt we deserved to get automatic.
I did.
We never do go at town, do we?
No.
We never get automatic.
1983. Amazing. Half this panel wasn't even born then, and we're all old bastards. And amazing. But that Anthony Kay header, this unreal, and the penalties. Even Anthony Kay's penalty where it smacks the bar, and you're thinking, oh, we've got another one. It's all right, we've got another one to go, and then bounces in. And I just remember Anton Robinson missing, and he slipped and let Danny Ward score during the game as well. And we thought he was that good. We spent 250 grand on him, and he was absolutely shite when he came. But you know, I suppose that's what happens. But he was decent for them up until he signed for us. But Bournemouth, fantastic. And are you happy to move on to MK, or you still got some Bournemouth memories?
No, let's move on quickly before we start discussing what happened after that. Let's keep going.
Milton Keynes. MK, Kosi, we remember going to MK, and I just remember, what was his name?
We were brilliant, mate.
Yeah, 2-0, Jack Hunt, Lee Novak swinging it in, Rhodes, glancing header, and we bossed them. But I remember Robinson, Fat James Corden, what's his name, the manager, and he really got into his head. Yeah, I think it's Robinson, isn't it? It really got into his head that we'd finished above them on the last game, and he was whinging about us having home advantage in the second leg, and it really seemed to rattle him. And we went there, and they just looked so underprepared, and Jack Hunt scored, and we won easily at Canter, really 2-0, and in the home game, Jordan Rhodes scored nice and early as well. I remember the away game. I can't remember his name. It's Carl, isn't he? He lives sort of in the Midlands, doing with the box head on from LMFA, you know, and Mark Ainley dancing in the car park afterwards. Really, really fun memories, those. And then in the home leg, Jordan Rhodes scored again, and we went 1-0 up, and I think that's where Ian Bennett got injured, and Smithies came on as well, didn't he? And Alan Smith, I remember a fan running up against Alan Smith and just tapping him over the head with a clapper. That was there, and Alan Smith going mental and chasing this fan across the pitch, trying to leather him. That was quite funny. And But yeah,
That was one of my mates.
is it?
Saying no names.
You'll tell me after. But Alan Smith scored late on, didn't he? But up until then, when they scored to make it 2-1 to them, that's the most I've ever felt quite chilled out about a playoff game, because we just sort of controlled that unbelievably, and and got to the final, and we know what happened then. But that MK game, it was weird, wasn't it? We just felt so in control, and it was the third time. And I remember FFP was coming in, and we're all worried that Dean wouldn't be able to keep putting money in, etc., etc. And it did feel a little bit shit or bust. But it was really weird how Simon Grayson was complete opposite to Lee Clark, and Lee Clark was really sort of really highly strung, wasn't he? Whereas Simon Grayson was like the complete opposite. He was like, "Yeah, I'm only here because I lost my favourite job at Leeds, but this will do for now."
Yeah, I remember when Grayson came in though. It was a strange appointment because like everybody, well, a vast majority were just like, "Don't want him. He's a Leeds.
He's a Chester." Well, I think we went for Warnock first, and he went to Leeds, didn't he? So we went for Simon, but it was all really quick, and to be fair, Grayson got us through, didn't he? He chilled us through.
He didn't even look bothered, Grayson. He's just like, well, yeah, got promoted.
It was a real contrast to 12 months earlier, though, Pos, because we were sat together, weren't we, for Bournemouth? And then I remember Simon Grayson was in that makeshift box, and all the way through there was Simon Grayson, you're a banker, weren't they? And like 12 months later, he's leading us in. We're all singing his name, and how fickle are we? Singing his name, and Simon Grayson's Barmy Army, and we're off to Wembley and all that. But yeah, and then obviously the last playoff semi is Hills, 0-0 at home. It's easy to forget Joel Coleman played in that game, because Danny Ward was suspended, and probably the most boring playoff game you'll see. But I remember thinking it was quite progress because Sheff Wednesday had beaten us twice in the league, and quite convincingly at their place, and we got a 0-0, and we were the better side. And then Hillsborough, Kosi,
Were we the better side? I don't think we were.
No, easy. I thought we were better side both games, to be honest. Stats-wise, I'll show that as well. But
I don't know if we were, but I just remember Hillsborough thinking I didn't fancy that in the playoff semi, but I thought we'd had us time. They obviously massive, was about 98,000 there, weren't there? But the
like a Coldplay concert with the lights, wasn't it, with the phones?
Oh, yeah, and obviously we had a little following, didn't we? Reduce allocation, or they didn't give us that many.
Yeah, 2,000 or so.
Yeah, top tier, what have you, and that as well. But oh man, God, where do you even start with this? It was just incredible. I still can't believe when I see that goal. I still think it's Naki Wells' goal. I've seen it about 9 million times, but it isn't. But I watch it every time thinking that, Naki! And but when Fletcher had put his big head on that ball and the place went absolutely crazy, I just thought that was it. We were out of it. And there's iconic things in the Wagner doing his, talk on the pitch with pointing to everyone, a bit like... better version of Phil Brown, wasn't it?
That was after. I think that was after. Was that after? Oh, no, it was during, wasn't it? The half time of extra time.
Yeah. Tariq Holmes, Dennis just going nuts when we won, sprinting like
a lunatic, jumping in wrong stand.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Dived into the bottom tier, didn't he? Thinking they were town fans.
Phil,
Hef was amazing.
As a keeper, Phil, for me, Danny Ward's goal celebration when he saved that penalty is the ultimate in a goalkeeper's celebrations. Most others might roll on the knees or just get mobbed by all his team. For me, that was the greatest celebration I've ever seen from a goalkeeper.
As a keeper, when you're playing games and you get to see all your mates like running around and celebrating and doing all, like firing into corner flags and stuff, and you're just stood over end just like that. So to be able to run a full length of the pitch, the only time I've ever done that to celebrate is when we beat Swindon away when we got relegated into League Two. And I'd got loads of stick off at Swindon fans behind goal. They were singing hi ho, and then shouting all sorts to me like about parents, etc. And then we won, and I just ran the full width of the away end, and I was just giving them all sorts of hand signals and everything like. And there's not many chances you get to do it, and he did it perfect. He got it absolutely perfect. The lads could not catch him. They've been grafting. All that time, extra time, they were absolutely couldn't catch him.
Lightning.
Boom, off.
Lightning.
Yeah, what a way to celebrate, though. Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant.
I think, you know what?
That night for me, I don't know about you guys, but that were better than Wembley for me.
Yeah, no, it was for me. Yeah, it was for me.
I enjoyed that more than Wembley because it were like, if we'd have gone to Wembley and lost, it'd have been absolutely devastating. Don't get me wrong, but if we'd have lost in playoff final, that'd have been 10 times worse. In semi-final, sorry, Hillsborough, that'd have been 10
so
times
unexpected
worse.
as well, wasn't it? Because we all expected Forestieri to score as well, because he was our scourge, wasn't he? He always scored against us, and then it was like redemption. I thought beforehand, I remember Jack Hunt stepping up and thinking, do you know what, this would be perfect if he misses and we win the game. And then he scored, and then Jack Payne misses, and then Forestieri walked up, and I thought, actually, do you know what, this would be even more perfect if Forestieri stepped up and missed this, and unbelievably it did. Kosi, 54% possession, Huddersfield, 15 shots, Town, 10 Sheffield Wednesday. There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
I just go with my gut half at time, and it's a bit smaller than it used to be, believe it or not. But no, I just felt we were done. I thought we were poor in that first game, and
Chef Wednesday in that first game never wanted to enter our half. It was the most diabolical. They get slit. Their fans slate.
They celebrated like they'd won.
They do. They did, yeah. And they never tried to attack us once. It was a really bizarre. They thought they could get a 0-0 and then beat us on their patch, didn't they?
The one thing that's coming to me though, like just discussing all this is, and we've got to remember what happens at Friday. It's only halfway through. If we've, I don't know, God, I sound like some kind of expert, but some of the games we thought, like that MK Dons, we thought we were through, and others, maybe I thought we were out. It just shows that we don't overthink it and go there to defend and get a draw. Let's just play our normal game. He knows what to do, Kaz. I don't need to listen to this bald idiot, but that's my only worry, just if we're winning 1-0, let's just go for 2 and 3. Don't do anything different that we've already done all season. Just play the game, man. And I'm so excited, but it's just weird, quite really confident, but I'll be so nervous come Friday night.
Right, enough of us talking about what should now be known as Chefcock Wednesday, and we'll talk about what people are saying online in the comments. Not a lot, actually. Cy Daly, going right back, your mate Cy Daly's here. Phil's, and he starts by saying, "Hi ho, Phil." No, he didn't really. He said, I know what Phil was angling at, asking who Luton would have wanted, and I agree. I think they would have wanted us. By no means an easy game. Steve Blackburn says, at least with VAR, we'll know if it's on or offside, etc. Even if it's an ant's leg distance deciding it. Richard Stacey says, do away goals count in the playoffs? Don't think they do. Bez says, I hope they do count, but not double. Terry 72 says, Matt Glennon said that Tino is an impact player. Would you start him on Friday instead of Holmes? No, I don't think he's fit enough.
No
Carlos
chance.
said.
So you haven't started him already. You never know with Carlos, do you? It makes
no, you don't. But he said he's.
You won't surprise the cats.
No, Carlos has already said that Tino can't play. He's already said Tino can't play 90 minutes. So
obviously away from home.
Yeah, he's more likely to start, isn't he? If we're in the home game, if we're behind after the first leg, maybe. But yeah, so Matt says I won't be risking Tino at Luton in the playoffs. Whatever you think, Holmes works off the ball. We need 11 Warriors on Friday. Reassess for the home leg if we're chasing them. Maybe it's Tino time. Dark Barnett says Brentford was phenomenal. I'm still not sure Bully's penalty went in. Matt says got the tube to the ground at Millwall that day. Only time I've kept my mouth shut going to a game. Intense to say the least. Soon as turned to the ground, got showered in bottles and glass. Dag Barnett says, I was in the cowshed 1983. Good for you, Dag. Not many of us were alive then. And then Matt says, do you think we will sell out for the away leg tomorrow? Luckily, I've got a blue and white, but do you think there'll be chance for just season ticket holders to get some?
I think there will be.
It's a Friday night, isn't it? I think there's about 2,000 blue and white members, 1,000 tickets. So
they all won't want to go. It's Luton.
They won't want to go, but they'll know someone who does.
Let's be honest, somebody will want to go, so they'll give them their number or whatever.
Possibly. So if you've got,
I know it's getting on, and it's a bit of a. I know we've discussed it before, and it's we're nearly at the back end at the podcast now, but I still think it's a disgraceful way to allocate tickets.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And Alphonse.
It is to do it, start it halfway through.
It's a strange one because, sorry, Kosi, I was going to say the club do so much for fans. I just want to follow that sort of comment up with some praise, really, just to sort of balance it out. But the club have done so much for fans over the last few years, and I just, there's a lot going on down at the stadium to get new fans down and kids and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to something like this, you've got to base it on loyalty and away games, and not just for this season. It's for since they decided to implement this originally. I think it was sort of Premier League era. Then they've got to carry on.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't just come in and say, "Well, if you give us an extra tenner," and I know Dean's come out and explained that we've hardly sold any. We haven't sold out away all season, and blue and white they never really have to use the priority to get tickets. Well, obviously because it's not sold out, so they'll just hang on and get one whenever they want. But it's just a little bit of it's the only thing really this season that I could say is probably a negative. But, you know, it is what it is.
It is. And the last comment is by Alfonso La Pulsa. Says there was something in the air that night. His pen was shite Fernando. So thanks for that, Alfonso. And then let's finish, Kosi. You put a tweet out earlier, didn't you? You put ahead of tonight's pod, we want to hear your best and worst memories of the playoffs. Make them personal to you rather than Wembley 2017, Old Trafford 2011, etc. And we will read the best out tonight. So I've got a list of them in front of me. I'll start reading one or two out, and then when you've caught up, mate, you can jump in.
Nah, you could.
You want me to do it? Simon Copland. Coppy's not been on the pod for a while. He's a new father, so everything seems to be going well there, mate. Everything looks great. And he's put, well, I'll never forget the time Matty Donnelly having to spend a few hours behind bars for storming out and kicking a bin after Peterborough's third in 2011. He was sat with me, and I don't remember this at all. I just remember being sat there, and I cannot listen to Katy Perry's Firework again without being reminded of Peterborough lifting the playoff trophy. But I was so mad because I felt so cheated.
Just stay for it, Matt.
I was just so annoyed and so gobsmacked because I felt so cheated because I felt like it was our year, you know, with the run we were on, the unbeaten run. It just felt like our year, and I just remember storming out and storming down the grass banking of the hard shoulder on the dual carriageway back to Manchester on my own. I were absolutely fuming. I was fuming, absolutely seething. I just walked on seething fumes. But yeah.
We walked back from Old Trafford to train station, and there were no trains, so we all had to get on a bus. And it was like, fuck's sake, what else?
There's like 3 train stations in Manchester. I remember getting home, and I remember going on the train, and Peterborough fans going, "Oh yeah, we're going to go to Derby next year, Forest." And I just remember thinking, I want to lamp these two, but I'm not that kind of character. I'd never do anything like that. But you know, I was so annoyed. I was just like, right, I need to go sit somewhere else. But Charlie says best was 2017. My dad eating 13 almond croissants, suffering through the shootout, and then speaking to a town fan to a town fan who seemed to have thoroughly soiled himself on the tube. Worst was Barnsley at home. It just slipped slowly away after I saw someone getting punched. Fun. And obviously we remember that time at Old Trafford as well, which was probably some of the darkest times we've seen as a town fan. Doug Thompson says worst was Peterborough at home, semi-final second leg 1992. Our first time in the playoffs. I can still see Steve Cooper's headed winner hitting the back of the net. Later scored in the semi-final to get Airdrie to the Scottish Cup final. He sadly died at just 39. He loves it. He loves his Scottish football, does Doug. He's surprisingly, despite his broad Yorkshire accent, he's Scottish. Freddie Cocker says, home game against Lincoln 2004. I cried at halftime when we were 2-0 down. Dad consoled me, came back and won it. He took me out of school for 2 days with the worst alibi possible so we could go. No one cared because, well, Town were in League Two. Magic. I need to know that alibi, Freddie, I think. Dan Hurd says, nothing will top 2003-4. A club in ruins. Jacko, 8 players. Effie Sodji. Young Guns, Stedinio, Pav, Lincoln offside, Rob Edwards, Mansfield, Colin Larkin, Liam Lawrence, Lee Fowler, Phil Senior. I'm throwing that in. Glory.
Larkin.
What a season. Jordan Rhodes.
Did you start that season with only 8 men?
We started, didn't we? They only see it with eight signed, yeah. And one of them was Phil.
I don't think he ever mentioned that.
No, I don't think he has. I think he's always said. I think he had 9, but one of them was Phil, so he always says 8. And Phil. Sorry, mate. Jordan Rhodes. Jordan Rhodes says best playoff memory. Oh, did you see Ollie Fisher's TikTok from earlier? I'm gonna have to repost that with him looking absolutely mortaled. I'm gonna get that repost.
I've not got TikTok.
Oh, someone posted it on Twitter. It's amazing. Best playoff memory, Hillsborough, May 2017. Me and Dirks, 22, had done a maths A-level exam in the morning, and we were on the 1:12 p.m. train to Sheffield. From the moment Fletcher scored, I was in tears. Felt as good as Wembley, and the first time I ever met Ollie Fisher. Well, commiserations, Jordan.
I was going to say, is that like a best and worst?
That's like the pleasure pain thing.
This is the best day. Then
it's like the old Muller Rice advert, isn't it? The pleasure and the pain sort of thing. But Sivan John says 2012 versus Sheffield United. Watching the game in Malaysia via live streaming, felt like I was inside a pressure cooker throughout the whole 120 minutes. Ran out of fingernails to chew during the penalty shootout. Screamed so loud when Smithy's finger of God sent Simonson's ball straight to the moon. Scribe Yak Tom, feed the yak and he will draw, said when we went up in 2003, our coach got back at the same time as the Town won and saw Jacko and Co coming off the coach with the cup was a special memory. Worst is obviously Old Trafford. Worst day ever. Chris Lamipai says, I've never watched 2011 back, not even the goals. It's almost wiped from my memory. 95 was my first promotion as a Town fan, so obviously love that one. 2012, my legs were shaking during the penalty shootout. 2017, I was calm as we weren't expected to go up. It'll be the same for these playoffs. Do you know what we haven't mentioned, which was really bad, actually? 2011, the T-shirts. That people throwing the T-shirts was a really shitty move, I thought, from a lot of Town fans. Sort of Dean Hoyle had spent personal expense putting these T-shirts out to make everything look blue and white, and a lot of Town fans were sort of throwing them back at the players when we lost. I thought that was really poor. And in 2012, when we...
Is that why you stayed?
I collected T-shirts, yeah. But they're all for sale on eBay still, 10 years later. And then the next year, I remember, I think there were clappers. Dean paid for the clappers, didn't he, in the Sheffield, against the Sheffield, at Wembley against Sheffield. And I remember people throwing the clappers, when we missed the first 3 penalties. And then we obviously won, and people going around and collecting them then again as mementos. But anyway, Phil Anderson says, Millwall away. Yeah, Millwall away. Terrible night. That bloody chaos getting out of the ground as well. All 4 to be put on a bus to the tube station of their choice. Had to look at all their fans in the front gardens giving us what for. Then obviously the posh match. Rhodes on the bench. Claire Johnson says, my worst memory was my dad phoning me at about 5 a.m. before the 2017 final to tell me he'd come down with a sickness bug and wasn't well enough to travel to Wembley. His words were gutted, a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Hopefully it wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime thing, though. And he said he's still sad he missed it, but better memory seeing a coach packed up at the side of the road as we headed away from Wembley in 2012. As we slowly passed, we realised it was a Town coach and someone had stopped to buy crates of beer. Must have been with Tom. And then let's have a look further down. We've got 2012, pretty good from Adam Ellis. Richard Jennings says, best was in 2012. After 8 years, Millwall and Peterborough, I thought we were destined to never see the championship. Then after 3 pens, I was crying and thought we were out. Then the unthinkable happened, although 2017 was amazing.
That was really incredible, that one. I know you're rattling through and that, but I was telling somebody about that other day because we're chatting about his playoff record and told him about that match against Sheffield United. Who misses the first 3 penalties and then wins?
I know.
That was incredible.
Alan Lee. What a man. Alan Lee. Tom Bradshaw absolutely loves Alan Lee, and I think we should have an Alan Lee debate with Neil Wayne and Tom and just see who wins that one. That would be quite a funny one. Right, Damien Johnson, Tommy Miller and Alan Lee, the 3 most experienced players, all missed, didn't they? That's it.
Peter Clark scored.
Yeah, the scenes with him proper doing it. But anyway, that's a final. We're not doing finals. Molly Firth says, Wembley 2012 when my 6-year-old sister was fast asleep across my mum's lap during the penalties, so she couldn't properly celebrate. We woke her up after the last one, though. Should have thrown her in the air. Get her up there.
I was going to say the launch, man.
Yeah, wake up. Terry 1964 says, although Hillsborough and Wembley 17 were epic, Brentford in 95 still my favourite. Unbelievable night. Worst, both posh games. Nightmares, but 92 edges it because I'd already been watching Town over 20 years. Never believed I'd see us at Wembley. Martin Sykes agrees with that. Clark Eastwood says, everything about Griffin Park in 95 was just incredible. From when Boothie's equaliser went in to Del Shannon blaring out at half-time and on to Bully's penalty, which didn't look like it had gone in from the bottom terrace of the away end. The scenes at the end, unforgettable. Moving down, the M1 Kefish. Wembley 17 says, thought I'd never see Town reach the Prem and take the kids, including my youngest to 18 months old. Was a great decision. Who's this? Nick Kennett says, my worst memory from the playoffs is the lowest I've ever felt watching Town losing to Peterborough. It was all set up after the first leg and we were the better team, but lost. I saw Simon Trevor in the fountain in Robert Town afterwards and he looked totally shell-shocked. Nice trivia. Simon Trevitt's brother Johnny used to play for the Fountain when they used to have a team in the Heavy Woolen League. He was quite decent as well. Lincolnshire Terrier says best is definitely 2012 final. Much of the all-male part of my family with me, his son included, saw my brother cry. Mark says worst had to be Old Trafford versus Posh. I scored as many points getting home too as Posh scored that day too. So yeah, that's not a great day for him. Blue and White Till I Die. Adam says driving past Wembley pub after 2012 final and seeing a dancing Blades fan inside throwing mad shapes like they'd just beaten us 10-0. Hats off to the guy. That's how you take a defeat. And thanks everyone else. We're pushing through. We've got Gary saying best was 1995. Tom TCR MRMN says 2017 unbelievable, but the change in emotion during the penalty shootout in 2012 was obscene. From missing 3 in a row to thinking we'll never get out of that league to winning on the keepers. I think the swing encompasses worst to best all in one. And then we've got worst Brentford away 2002, where Thomas Erie was probably our best player on the pitch. From Lucas. Andrew Foster says, for some reason to me, 95 and 2017 are more special than 2004 and 2012. Marco says Wembley, the Sheffield United one. Paul Spencer says best was getting my travel plans absolutely spot on for the last one. Got the latest train possible, sauntered into Wembley just as they kicked off. Worst was watching the Cardiff one from a corporate box with a load of non-fans more interested in the free food and booze. And thanks to everyone else for sending theirs in. There was way too many here to read out. Dale Marsden sent one in, said he was been lucky enough to be one of the 2,000 at Hillsborough with lads I'd travelled the country with for many years, securing the chance to win promotion to the Promised Land. And his worst was Peterborough beaters on his birthday, 21st birthday. That's a shocker for Dale. Thanks to Simon Morgan as well. Matt Smith have all sent ones in.
What was that, 92?
Yeah, I think it will be. And then, and the last one we'll do for the seldom seen kid. He said, when the ball went past Ali Al Habsi, my son turned to me and burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. Tears of pure joy. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. For me, it will never be about the match, but it'll be forever be about that moment. So I think that's a nice way to end that. So thanks for everybody doing that. And I think that's it for now. Kosi, do you want to sing us out with anything in particular, or shall we just go to the credits? Thank you to everybody.
No, mate. Blue white.
I will say before. I best say before we end this, Kosi, that.
Get someone who knows the blue white.
Right, let's mute Kosi for a minute. Right, that's the Kosi done. So thanks to everybody for listening today. If you could click on the like button. Right, that's it. Let's mute Kosi again. So thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to everybody. If you could just click that like button on the YouTube channel if you're watching, that'd be fantastic. It really helped with you guys doing that last week and actually appeared on the suggested videos, which was fantastic. So thanks for that. That's my begging ball out. Kosi, you've been on mute. I've not heard a word of that. So unless you're going to sing Dreams by Gabrielle, I'm going to go to the ending. That's a no.
Blue White fan.
Bring that car back to Huddersfield. So town play up. Bring the car back to Huddersfield.